Welcome to People and Their Poems podcast. My name is Sandy Carlson. I'm your host, and I'm honored today to be with Ukrainian poet and lawyer Slava Konoval. He is with us, calling in from Kyiv, Ukraine, to share his poetry and his experiences of being a writer in a war zone. Welcome, Slava.
Well, thank you. Okay.
Your work is very, very powerful and affecting, and deserves as wide an audience as it can get.
Well, thank you.
Slava Konoval, is that correct?
Yeah. My full name Vyacheslav Konoval, but Vyacheslav has a different explaining in the short form of Slava. Slava often used in official documents, so you can use Slava Konoval, Vyacheslav. There is no exceptions.
Okay, gotcha. Slava, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Would you talk about yourself as a poet? Have you always been a poet, or is this something that's emerged inside you as a result of the circumstances in your country right now?
My life is the life of the Ukrainian boy who once come to conquer the capital. I always was a creative person, and in the last 2 years, I began to finalize as a poet. My poetic work is my life work, and my purpose to say the truth, even if it is a situation she is not tasty. Once upon a time, my creativity began as street protest. Always begin. I have one feature that I received from my mother milk. It's the keen sense of justice. As you can understand, my inability to single-handedly confront various types of social challenges in the world could not disappear without trace. It turned to energy. Injustice accumulated and constantly boiled in my heart. Therefore, self-control, my actions were focused on the creation of small poetic works. Very soon, I began to pamper an audience with sarcastic comics lines. Since I'm a conservative person in my outlook on life, I embrace to write social posts on social networks. That's why I write and share my little poems.
Since the war began, you've been sharing a lot of your poems with English language outlets. You're easily findable on the internet. If anybody searches Slava, S-L-A-V-A, Konoval, K-O-N-O-V-A-L, they're going to find your work in many, many locations and a wide variety of poems as well. What has been the response to the poetry that you've been publishing since the war began in Ukraine, February 2022?
I am a witness of Russian harsh and cruel aggression toward Ukraine, and that's why I didn't stay alone across the team about Russian-Ukrainian war. The topic of war did not escape my creativity in the last 40 poems. From the beginning of full-scale invasion of Ukraine, I still been in Kyiv for nowadays even, and my house located near 14 kilometers from the main battlefield lines when were occurred on February 2022. Russian harsh and cruel aggression toward Ukraine pushed me to describe the truth about Russian aggression to the whole world. Taking into account the powerful influence of Russian propaganda in the world, my goal as creator is to decide as lyrically as this is impossible the horrors of war and dispel the strong myth in the world of good Russians. I have the politicians work with the diplomats, and I work with the readers. That's my mission. I have one life rule: I never spoiled by life. Barriers are constant in my life. This is both censorship and fear of some individual editors slight me more radically and frank literary content. Under all my circumstances, I will never give up. Circumstances in my life always be a single post for self-destruction, defeat. I live and I fight. I fight on the poetic way. I always remain optimistic and believe in my abilities. The impossible in human hands becomes possible someday. I'm a fan of classic Ukrainian literature of the 18th and 20th centuries. My poetry preserves the powerful spirit of vast areas of nobility, self-affirmation, and selectivity. I think that my works have inherited the main ideas and the main unique creative style for my poems. I'm perfectly aware that renounces futuristic currents in the favor of the past. As the practice show, if the author turn to the past, he cannot be probably be successful in his future, because society is experience or it's our generation. But as a fighter for truth, I will not deviate from the past that is centered on the truth. My parents are representatives of working profession. They made a lot for my best education. There is no such profession to be as lawyer. That's why be a poet. I am a lawyer in my. I deal with injustice every day. This was probably a trigger because I made a decision to be honest and include with myself. I would really like to one day when I have a good, lucrative, creative contract, and yeah, I can turn law into a tool to help the wronger. Free time could be used to help society. Today it is from the case. It is the global tendency. As for about the feature of my poetry creativity, it's difficult to live in cynicism. And every morning you wake up and every time you see cynicism in the mirror. Our life flows through the cynicism, but we are not victims of new rules of the world. You and I, we are all adapters. We are all adapters against our will. We are all the hostages of the oppressed ego of life, which constantly drawn out a part of the beautiful one, who is valuing in every human cynicism, deception, and lies. And this is not about the comfort. There is not the personal comfort zone. There is the truth. This is about the subjective truth. It is the truth we need and we need to protect. God forbid, but it seems to me that that world has gone mad. So much effort to protect false values and so little action to protect the truth itself. You probably don't like it when the psychopaths can good position a lucrative contracts. And why should be a snitch? Why? This is a central theme because my poems attract very sociable hard ties with the ecology, government, with mutual relationships. It's probably unpleasant when you knock on the door of the opportunity, but the echo work of your knock is not heard because of the envy, pride, and the greed of the others. And why should be aloof just because you are not familiar with the influential people? It is unpleasant for you probably when you are exhausted trying to something and you do not hear even a word of thanks or thanks in response. The answer is silence and the sly flattering smile. And why do you have to prove your purity to the whole world? How can we like this? People come to your senses. This is probably why I'm a poet. I'm torn apart from the avalanche of invented frameworks of life in which there is no place for people who live not according to ideals, but according to the conscience in the Christian way. We play for something else rules with the taste of cynicism. They are strangers to us. Tell yourself about it. And this is the little I summarize in general, but it's little part of my work. It's about cynicism and about truth and acute social problem in our society. I started 2 years ago from this poem, and I can amplify it in my future stanza of my poems, and so finalize in Russian Ukrainian Vodi.
Slava, would you read your poems for us?
Conversation of Tsverkun. Tsverkun is translated in English cricket. A conversation of Tsverkun. Conversation of cricket. A cricket spread gossip. Sitting on the grass, a street bred does not keep secret on weekends and hot weekends. A cricket plays in the dew, twists a straw, hides in the green, the new flies twice. Did he tell the world a story? How difficult was his life in the grass? Prayers to the sun, moon, and east. People do not appreciate his daily labors. Moon Dance. It's my favorite poem. Imagine a body with a black sweep. A pale glow enveloped the valley. A luminescent oval cast a shadow. The lunar spring laziness lay in the sky. Whether in the south, the west, where in the east, one big white circle, the foggy blaze in the surface. On the last day of spring, it all happened. A cosmic body mocks me. Look at me, comet that flew into distance. Confused thought. The time of waiting has passed. Railway freight car drives along the front rows. The world that loved executioner. Recently, I received a comment from a Polish poet. He said that the world that loved executioner, it's a philosophical poem in his mind and as the migrant. Red and thin tie, which is barely noticeable. On the official stomach, small jacket of European fortune, trouble because someone's adults rubbles. Grain is thought like a trading card, playing a game it seems, but the players, fragile, starchy bureaucrats, their words chew healthy cereal. Western celebrities love gifts, big bonuses, pay for cynicism. It's easy to wrap the ice cream, naming grief as comprehensive pluralism. How easy to get the tire of violence, forget about your concern, and deep in the executioner arms, Guterres Putin said, I love. It does not matter what your status, look at the map. Everything is conditional. Radiation will be carried out by winds, and the warm sea it will bring. I emphasize that this is a slight poem for me because my first poem about the battlefield, they had the cruel picture. Some of them I would like to read to you and comment because the structure, the stanzas, and personal hero, which I describe in the poem, Americans cannot hear about them, but they are all heroes for us and for the whole world. Yeah, the first poem, Dog Day. This is a poem I dedicated to the lawlessness of Russian invaders of the battlefield, who became the prey of the homeless dogs. Staggering, a drop of dew falls from the green grass, fog, and even acid smoke covers the ground. The cylinder was torn on all sides, so it was gas. Wretch camouflage was whole, the Red Sea swallows the corpse, and there the field, cartridge without controls. The tire blazed, moaned, aerated, then fished. Here in the hostility, aggressive appetite has not diminished, the enemy turned into fertilizer. A strong dog howls, recite prayers with a hoarse voice, stares and the thrown soldiers' joys, and the enemy has made their choice. It's about the Russian troops on the battlefield, which lay and dog eaten from time to time. The second main poem, when do we hear Buravi? Buravi, it's Ukrainian military invention, which has launched artillery system on their sides. It's machine like I forgot about the last launch artillery machine which USA transported to Ukraine. The Buravi, it's less high equipment machine comparing with the Russian model, but about Ostrov Zmyiny, this machine used from the beach, and the rocket launch artillery system catch Russian on the Iceland. So it's powerful Ukrainian inventory machine. So this is my poem about it. So when do you hear Buravi? Oh, the tire is trampling the track. She is surrounded by the greenery. Large barrel anti-air gun flag. The falsity had disappeared, as well as the scenery. Slowly race the back, sleeping handsome, yellow iron blink, and the green camouflage on the color black. Start 1, start 2, fire. The captain of the car will shot. The first volley rocket well ahead. The Polish skill they too acquire. Angelic smiles shine on their face. No more undoubting Isha on the anger in headquarters and the other military place. February 24 and the Puron stream, which had burst, cosmetic and indifferent to the face. What about the Krim? Oh no, this is deep wounds of Ukrainian people. Russian tanks went to the Kharkiv district road. The guys quickly launch moved, and loud commander is heard. The dull rocket crash shot of the ammunition of the tanks, and here the Bayraktar, a little bird who the native intelligence teams helps. The second my poem, the one who beat the time. This is a poem about a Ukrainian warrior, Vitaly Skakun. He blew himself on the bridge when Russian equipment was moving from the occupied Crimea to the Kherson region. It is the bridge between Crimea and Kherson region, which stopped the enemy advance and gave the Ukrainian time to prepare. He blown himself with a bomb on the bridge with the Russians, and they flew up into down the river. In the memory of Vitaly Skakun and honor this very hero, he gave the enemy a little time honesty zero. Holy Mother of God, what did the heaven please? Save the warrior soul, sing song ballads, and he stopped the enemy soldiers alone, not 7. Sailor of the sea forces, he is the engine by profession, change a master in the field without fashionable courses. He blew himself up with the bridge, stopping the invader columns. Bodies, they are now in the fridge. Glorious son of Ukraine, dear, you gave your life for my freedom, for the right to live, eat and drink, even a mug of beer. The next one, it's also about the Ukrainian artillery system Bogdana. Bogdana is the creator of this machine. Maybe maybe name its machine on behalf of your mother, daughter, or maybe wife. Bogdana, it's a reactive salvo fire system. It's capable of hitting targets at a distance of 40 kilometers. It was Bogdana who helped expel Russian from many cities from Ukraine. I called the poem Bogdana. She is a woman, a defender. Holy Mother of God, that gives knowledge the mother milk to create a wonderful fighting machine with the cabin and the crew. The number is odd. The car has an affectionate name, Bogdana. It's attributed to the designer and breed. Bogdana is a preparing rocket in a hurry. She can confidently lead us that garners the guide. 6 shut up kilometers of volleys count in a distance. The captain looks call me. His black coffee is not yet ripe. Coffee in a cup. Bogdana throws shells from the cannon like a naughty girl. Reed made out artillery stories from the grandson. Bogdana, reactive system spotted by the enemy howitzer. The soldiers praise you at the goddess Aphrodite. I'm glad I become the god. And the last, my poem about all conscript soldiers in Ukraine. It's young boy without previous military training. They take the weapon on the 24th of February 2022 and to try to defend their homes, their motherlands, their all relatives. I called it Duma about 4 conscript soldiers. The boy's childhood and the school years flew armed in the one day. The commissars looked them to the army. Weapons, equipment, fuel, everything new for the young. Soldiers, gentlemen, glorious warriors, henceforth they. Once of the tank to 10 of them is this justice, the transcotem at the oak stem.
Oh, thank you, Slava. I feel like you took me through the military experience of living with war, as well as the emotional and the psychological experiences, and powerful stuff. And the sort of the war goddess Bogdana has me thinking, just opening up my mind to new ways of thinking about what's actually happening in your country right now. So when I first heard from you, I searched up your name just to read more of your poetry, and found it in many English language publications, and got a rich education. Can you tell me? I know your hope is to get a publishing contract at some point. What are your next steps towards getting your poetry in front of a wider public?
Oh, it's hard to say. I have not any plan to introduce myself to the world. If we speaking about country, editors includes my poems into their anthologies, and they publicate on Amazon, on their website, on printed issues, and that's all. Maybe it is enough for nowadays when my poem is printed in many journals, or till nowadays it's account to 60 literary journal in the whole world. I often took part in Ukrainian literary contents, and this year I was printed. Ukrainian's editor is so say responsible for their work, and they choose very scholastic and philosophically, because Ukrainians as a nation has many so talent people. Many former Ukrainian people are famous in USA, and it's Hollywood stars. They have the root from Ukrainians, Canada. It's the former Ukrainian immigrants from the 18th centuries. Mm-hmm. it's much too hard to be a star in Ukraine as the easy is to be famous in US.
Oh, I got you. It's great. It's great stuff. And have you gotten a good response? I mean, you are widely published in English language journals. Do you get responses from your readers directly, or are you able to interact with your audience much?
In the whole, the most audience which interests my poetry and the audience from the West. Mm-hmm. Recently, I prepared a material for critics on author request to me for next publication. We has a communication before on the Netherlands bookstore, and I presented myself on books Netherlands book audience, and they interested. I usually publish my Ukrainian version of poem on allpoetry.com. Has many positive comment on my poetry, and even Englishman translated Ukrainian version into English, and thanks me because that I publish in Ukrainian and try and coerce him to translate into English. And thank you a lot. I was surprised. I am a member of Scottish Writers Federation. It's helped me to grow, I think, because it's English-speaking community. By the way, I use poetry as possibility to learn English better.
Oh, I see.
Because I'm a foreign poet. I'm a foreign poet, and the English stance, the English style, differences between American poet structure, English poem structure. It's very interesting from the literature aspect.
Right.
I like it. I like it. And Ukrainian modern poetry that's because it's poetry without feelings. Russian American stanza like to describe the feelings in the other way, but Ukrainians they finalize their stanza in a favor of a modern approach. They like form of the poem, not the structure, not the essence, without essence. As they prefer the classic poem, that's why I like to read American and English poetry representatives.
That helps me understand or articulate why so many of these poems feel very different from American English poems. The poems from Ukraine in this book, Words for War, the imagery is very vivid, and there's a formality in the presentation, and so much of the emotion you infer. That's very interesting that you say that. I did find your YouTube video with the Scottish Language Federation, or the Scottish Writers.
They have some project when we downloaded other videos, when we written the poems on their website, and on their website on the list, and I'm official member because the full poetry poets on the headlines on the websites presented, and my poems will be nominated on the National Poetry Day in Scotland. I have a good ties with the Scotland, because Ukrainians Ukrainians habitual tradition and the English Scotland tradition is very similar. In historical aspect, the Celts culture and Ukrainians culture in many phrases are similar. They mythology, religion, we have all ground, cultural ground, and we understand as the person from the ancient, because Celtic Celtic state, or formal Celtic state organization works with the Ukrainian tribes, or they have marriages, they have military suspicion, and conglomerizing Celts and Ukrainian tradition spreads on the formal Roman Empire. That's why Celtic and Ukrainian tradition has mutual root, and even Norway conqueror was the king in England, and some of his son rule was in Kiev. Rurik, for example, he has a normal command, and he was the king of the whole Europe. We have all our mutual king, so his historical roots helps us to understand each other. And Americans has roots from the Scotland, Wales, Irishmen, and maybe we all have our we have from the past our predators from the past.
True, and a shared history in pushing back on an aggressor determined to eradicate your culture. So I mean, it's another common thread, you know. I think
and the humans' behavior are similar. What globalization process starts to show our fears, mutual common problems, problems of municipalities, problems of budgeting process, problems with the refugees, problems with the distant labor, problems with the workplace. All our troubles are similarly and are common for all of us. the globalization showed that we all are humans with their mutual things, and even a mutual thing. I paid attention to American poets. They describe how reality reflects on their minds. And if we translate it from the English to Ukrainian, yeah, we can admit that it's similar for us.
Yeah.
Nothing special.
Are there any particular American poets that you gravitate to?
American poets have one feature. It's to show the speculate of the algorithm of sense of poems, and it escape from the form. And Ukraine like to show the essence and try to use form for this essence. American poets likes Ukrainian for the forms, and Ukrainian poets like for the essence. American poems. This is our this distinction. Maybe it's poetry tradition. Maybe I don't judge.
Yeah, no, it is very interesting to put the poems in conversation as well as the experience of life in conversation and to notice. Really, I think poetry helps us notice what makes life meaningful or challenging or beautiful, and how a culture expresses that through poetry is part of our cultural experience. Truly, Americans like to escape from form and dwell in the emotion of poetry very often. And I think sometimes we would do well to remember the value of form as something that's inherently part of what a poem does. So it is very nice to see different approaches to poetry, but I also think what is important is the phenomenon of poetry arises in every culture. And it's needed, particularly in a time of incredible tension and uncertainty and danger, which is where we are right now. And so I appreciate your sharing your poetry and your insights about what it is to live in a war zone and to share stories through your poems might not otherwise be available to American listeners or readers. All right, Slava. Well, thank you for sharing your experiences and your poetry through the People and Their Poems podcast today. I appreciate meeting you and hearing your stories and hearing about your life.
Thank you.
Your poems.
Thank you. I will apologize for you and for your listener because I am a foreigner. I have a small practice with English speaking every day. It's very rare when I have the interview or Zoom conference.
Oh no, you did great, and I'm looking forward to finishing up this podcast.